It's October, and that means Halloween. And even if you don't celebrate the holiday, Verve has something for you. On the Shudder app, on the Verve Combo Pack, there are tons and tons of horror movies on Verve for you to watch when you get the service, including not just independent horror films, but also recent movies, well, kind of recent, like American Psycho's on here, some of the Halloween films are on here, and also classic Alfred Hitchcock films too, plus a lot of creepy TV shows and creepy series can be found on Verve. Check it out down below. Plus, there's a new update to Nick Splat with new episodes of Doug, Rocket Power, and tons of Nick shows, and of course, anime, tons of it as well. vrv.co/geekdom. Try it out for free. The link is down below. And on Verve right now, the original Halloween movie from 1978 is on the platform. So check that out, because I'm sure there's probably some of you who have never seen the original Halloween, and you definitely need to see that. Now, that's not what we're talking about here today. We're talking about the 2018 Halloween movie, a sequel to the original 78 Halloween. This starts up a brand new timeline. Halloween 2, 4, 5, 6, and 3, of course. 7, 8, Rob Zombie, none of that even counts anymore. This movie is a direct sequel to the original Halloween from 1978, the theatrical cut, not the television version. So if you're one of those people who have only seen the TV version that adds that subplot of Laurie being Michael Myers' sister, that is not in this movie whatsoever. In fact, it's actually established very early in the film that Laurie is not his sister, because there is a bit of a backstory with Michael Myers involving his sister Judith Myers in this 2008 film. So we're going to get to it here in this review. Now, I did a podcast, the Geekdom 101 podcast last week with Mike Bracken. If you have not heard that, I'm going to leave a link down below for y'all to check that out, because we recapped the entire Halloween franchise, all 10 movies. All of them. It's crucial listening if you are a fan, and even if you're not a fan, check it out. But if you're a fan, you're going to appreciate it a lot more. It's a good retrospective. This is the 11th Halloween film, but like I said, it is Halloween 2. And the thing about this movie is, and I'm going to start the review by saying this, okay? This movie is what Halloween H2O should have been. I mean, it really is. Halloween H2O had potential, but it had a lot of problems. It was, at the end of the day, it just doesn't age very well, and I'm not a fan of this movie. This movie is back to basics Halloween. Michael Myers going around slaughtering people very brutally, because he's a freaking savage in this movie, and we're back to basics. Now, a couple of things, because this review is gonna give you kind of the pros and cons of the movie, because it's not a perfect movie at all, but it is probably the best Halloween movie since the original sequel, since Halloween 2. I'm not sure how I feel about it compared to Halloween 4, because I do like Halloween 4, but I feel like this one was probably better. It's just one of those things where I have a lot of nostalgia for 4, because that was a rental in my house when I was younger. But as far as it being a well-made movie, I think that this one is probably the best one since the original sequel, since the Halloween 2. But remember, like I said, all those sequels are ignored. This is now 40 years after the first Halloween. Laurie Strode, Michael Myers reunite in a way that obviously, is not going to be, they're not going to be exchanging Christmas gifts, you know what I'm saying? But the movie does borrow elements from a lot of different Halloween movies. Case in point, Laurie Strode's PTSD and her psychoticism almost, and her, paranoia over Michael Myers, because she knows that Michael Myers did indeed survive the first Halloween movie. And let me tell you something off the hop right now about this movie. They actually explain right at the beginning where Michael's been for the past 40 years. So it's not one of those things where, they just have a long time skip and just magically he's alive. No, there actually is an explanation as to where Michael has been. Now, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis reprises her role as Laurie Strode, much older, of course, but a much more seasoned actress. Nick Castle is actually back from the original movie as Michael Myers. And unfortunately, Donald Pleasance passed away, so he could not be in this movie. That was the other part of the trio from the first movie and the second movie as well. But there is a new psychiatrist. There is a new guy. His name is Dr. Sartain, and he is the guy who's been keeping tabs on Michael Myers all these years. Now, You're going to quickly find out, though, as the film progresses, that even though Dr. Sartain is, you know, the successor to Dr. Samuel Loomis, they are not similar at all. They're very, very different people, and the movie does kind of play with that. You know, the whole concept of that character's motivations, Dr. Sartain, is that he wants to know why Michael Myers does what he does. He wants to know what motivates him to kill. Now, one thing I love about this film, when comparing it to the sequels, is that it cuts all the crap. There's no cult, there's no Michael Myers having sex or any of that stuff. You know, none of that stuff's in this movie. None of that garbage. They don't have, you know, rappers shoehorned into the movie like in H2O and Resurrection because we got to appeal to the kids. No, it's back to basics. Like I said, Michael Myers slaughtering people, but he does have a purpose, and his purpose is to find Laurie because she's the one that got away. You know what I mean? And so there is that storyline, but in this version, like I said, it's not his sister. It's just totally just him being motivated, you know, to get her, right? And of course, you know, this Laurie is not the same Laurie from the first movie. One thing I'm going to tell you about this movie is that there are tons and tons of parallels to Terminator 2. The development of the characters is virtually identical. If you've seen Terminator 2, you know what to expect here. Laurie Strode in Halloween 78 is Terminator 1 Sarah Connor. Laurie Strode in Halloween 2018 is Terminator 2 Sarah Connor. She's much more prepared. Her PTSD has been an issue, but this time she wants Michael. And if you saw the trailers, you know this. She wants Michael to get out because she's going to be ready for him this time. And as the movie progresses, you start to see her kind of be on the edge because certain news stories break about Michael and what could be happening with Michael, and she is worried because she's a grandmother, and her children are a very important role in this movie. In fact, the movie does kind of borrow from I don't know if it's really borrowing from the Rob Zombie movies as much as it's, you know, portraying like the three generations of the Strodes. Obviously, other Halloween movies have tried to do this with the other Strode members, but they don't overdo it in this movie at all. No gimmicks here. Like I said, Michael Myers is back to form. Now, the portrayal of Laurie Strode by Jamie Lee Curtis is great. I can't say anything negative about her performance. She was fantastic in the movie. The movie tried its best to recapture the magic from the first film. In fact, there's even a scene in the movie with three characters walking down the street that, I mean, I don't know if it was shot in the same street as the original Halloween. I don't think it was, right? But it certainly felt like it for that scene. Like, they did such a great job of capturing the magic of the first movie, but they really failed to capture the magic for the whole movie. Like, for some scenes, they got it, but for the majority of the film, they just could not recapture the atmosphere that John Carpenter did in the original 1978 Halloween. But you have to understand that we're talking about John Carpenter here. Not even John Carpenter could beat John Carpenter. And if you don't believe me, watch Escape from L.A. That'll tell you everything you need to know about John Carpenter and who he used to be versus who he became. But I still have a lot of respect for the man. And for this movie, he's not directing it. David Gordon Green is directing it, but he does help with the soundtrack. And I gotta tell you, the soundtrack was great. They took the original Halloween theme, they remixed it a bit, added some more piano to other themes. So there's a lot of very soft and creepy piano that felt like it was from another era. It reminded me of the old horror movies from the 70s and 80s, which in many ways were more terrifying because of the fact they had a low budget. I feel like some of these movies, the fact that they're lacking a big budget actually makes them look creepier because they look more real. And that's the whole creepiness of Michael Myers, especially in this movie. There's no supernatural cult or supernatural powers. They don't have Michael Myers surviving unrealistic circumstances. No, in this movie, Michael Myers is essentially a guy who, for some reason, enjoys murdering people, and that's it. Michael Myers could be a dude that you see in the parking lot. Michael Myers could be a dude that you run into at the grocery store. Like, he doesn't talk, but still, like, it's not too hard to... I mean, it's definitely believable because we have real-life serial killers, and that's what Michael Myers is. So the movie is terrifying because of how real it actually is, okay? It's very, very grounded in reality, but there are some things in the film that I thought needed some work. You know, case in point, like I said, they didn't capture Carpenter's original feel at all. They tried, but it didn't work. Also, I felt like in the film, there was way too many coincidences. Obviously, with this movie, it's not as bad as Insidious 4, where they just so happen to be at a diner and she runs into her brother. None of that crap in this movie, but it definitely, there were parts of the movie that were like, okay, that's a bit too, coincidental. It's like he happens to be there at that time, like she happens to be there at that time. She happens to know where this is at. Michael Myers finds things just there and gets lucky when he finds certain things without spoiling it that are his and were his, and finds houses and things like that. It's just too coincidental whatsoever, I felt. And really, to me, that it didn't ruin the movie, but it was a nitpick. Also, I feel like, dude, does anybody in Haddonfield lock their doors? I mean, Jesus, bro. Like, I'm watching the movie, and this guy's just, he's going around from place to place finding victims, and I'm just watching the movie, and I'm like, does anyone lock their freaking doors in this town? Like, if you're listening to this at home, lock your door, dude. And I'm not saying that you're going to have a killer come after you, but please lock your door. This is ridiculous. Like, it's almost like dumb. And I wish they would have put a scene in the movie where, like, Michael tried to break into a home, but he couldn't because for whatever reason it was too much of a pain in the ass, so he just moved on to the next house. I wish they could have done something like that, but I don't know. I thought that was a little bit annoying to me, just things like that. Now, John Carpenter described Michael Myers as being sort of like a force of nature, like supernatural. And when he said that, he didn't really mean like powers. It's more so that Michael is very driven to kill, and there's no real explanation as to why he does what he does. He's just evil. He's pure evil, and that was the original concept behind Michael Myers in the original movie. But still, like, it almost, in this movie, even though he's saying it's supernatural, it is very grounded in reality. It does feel like something that could have happened in the real world. Also, another thing you should be aware of is that the movie does take a little bit of time to get going, okay? That is one thing I will tell you. It starts off very interesting, then it gets really slow, and then it kind of picks up really, really well around the second act, and it's pretty much good, smooth sailing as far as entertainment goes for the remainder of the movie. The kills in this movie are very, very brutal, but they're very simple. There's not, like the creativity of like a nightmare movie. Obviously, you can't do that here because it's not the dream world. Or like some of the stuff Chucky was doing, and even Jason, and even, Leatherface and some of the sequels there. The kills here are very simple, but very, very brutal in the way they're portrayed. It's not too gory of a film, but you can tell that David Gordon Green knew what he was doing. But he also, in my opinion, is not as great of a filmmaker as John Carpenter. Now, again, who is? This is a high benchmark to hit. You know what I mean? And this is the guy who directed Pineapple Express. I mean, this guy, he has a resume of interesting movies, not quite movies like this one, but he did okay. He did a good job, but it's just not, if you're looking to recapture the original Halloween, it tried, it came close, but it just didn't quite hit the mark. But it was still a very good movie. I had a good time watching it. If you are listening to this and you're a fan of horror, fan of the genre, fan of Halloween, the franchise, check out Halloween 2018. You will not be disappointed. Go to the movie theater to go see it. If your parents want to go see the original in 78, take them to go see it. If you have a date, this is a great date movie. Perfect date movie. Really enjoyed it. Really refreshing genre movie, refreshing slasher film, and it's a good time. It's a good little movie, and I think it is worth going to see in the movie theater. And if you're a fan of the franchise, you're going to pick up on a lot of little Easter eggs and things from the older movies that they threw in there, just as little nods. There weren't, it wasn't, I was worried it was going to be like a lot of fan service, and it really wasn't. I read somewhere that the movie was fan servicey. It really was not. It actually felt like a true sequel done right. Like I said, this is Halloween H2O done right. That's what this is. Let's reunite the cast and do what we can. And that's what this movie was. So check out Halloween 2018, and I will have a spoiler review coming out very soon. We dive into details of the movie, but for right now, if you haven't seen it, go see it. You'll have a good time. And for God's sakes, remember to lock your doors.